And welcome back to Home Track Heroes here on CW11 from Evergreen Speedway. Coming up next are Evergreen Legends. And Tom, a lot of cars on the 3/8 track with a very wicked horsepower to weight ratio that this is going to be fun.
Yeah, the Legend Series, this is a national series, very strict rules, probably more horsepower than the tires can take.
Right.
Tough things to drive.
Yeah, they are. But boy, do they teach you car control, and they teach you how to be a way better driver. Let's bring you the lineup for our 30-lap main event for the Evergreen Legends.
Starting on the pole, it's car number 36. That's Robert Clark. Outside of him, the 2M of Jeff Miller. Inside row 2 with 11C of Chad Sinner. Outside, Mike Gardner in the 72 car. In the third row, it's 11M of Rick McNeil. And, of course, your fast qualifier for the day, the 2B outside, that's Tanner Bennett. Inside of row 4, the 25 car of Brian Carlson. And outside, Bo Stevenson in the 22.
Then we go to car number 29 of Don Rogers. The 98 is driven by Aaron Flett. Mac Roberts is behind the wheel of the 12 car. Cameron Main is behind the wheel of the 13. The 10T is Chris Thompson. The 32 is Ernie Estrin. The 15 car of Davis Jacobson. Rounding out the field in the car number 11S is Scott Main. A couple of really interesting stories. One we'll start off with, and that's the driver of the number 72 car. Mike Gardner has not been in a legend of any kind in 10 years. He just kind of shows up, and Keith Van Dyne, who owns the car and has been the director of the Legends for quite a few years, says, hey, get in and run it. And Mike's got, yeah, I got my suit. Let's go do it. And, boy, what a show that guy put on.
You're right. And then there's Ernie Estrin, who son has owned race cars out here for years, and Ernie's probably by far the oldest man in the field. Keep an eye on row 2. That's where your heat race winners are going to start. On the inside, it's Chad Sinner, and outside of that, it's Tanner Bennett.
Our fast qualifier, Tanner Bennett's a kind of a cool story, too. That Bennett family from over in Yakima have gotten really behind the Legend Series. You see them get lined up, and we are going to go green here on the 3/8 at Evergreen Speedway.
Through the gears as they head off into turn 1. It's 30 big laps for these cars. You're going to see them, all over the racetrack because, as we said earlier, the horsepower, those skinny little tires, makes those things treacherous to drive.
You can see them now right in between turn 3 and 4. Those will be on our 3/8. Pretty much everything we do from here on out tonight will be on the 3/8 course. Lap number 1, looking good. And there's your number 2 car, the 2B at Tanner Bennett right there on your screen.
Right now the leader is Chad Sinner. That 11C car as he heads off down into turn 3. He'll drive it down deep, get on the brakes very, very hard, turn that thing, and then head on down the front straightaway.
And what's kind of cool is you take a look at some of these times that these guys are turning here. Is we've got 2 laps in the books. Working number 3, we've got a caution right there. The 98 car is spun out on the front stretch, and that is Aaron Flett. And Aaron will get that car back underneath and join the back of the field. One thing that really is going to happen on this track, it's hot, and they will get around. It's still greasy as a lot of the oils are coming up. They've been trapped there all off-season long. And so these cars are so twitchy, they kind of just get a little drop of that, and they are just going around.
And you're right. And for the people who are just coming, maybe made familiar with racing, because the penalty for spinning out, he's got to go to the back and try and work his way forward again.
Exactly right. These cars are a unique combination of a lot of different things. A 1200cc motorcycle engine, a motorcycle transmission, an old Toyota Celica rear end is what they use in these things, drum brakes, and on the rear, disc brakes in the front. A lot of different combinations, but boy, they make for some phenomenal racing. And like you had mentioned, you can run them here at Evergreen Speedway. You can go all the way back to the East Coast and join any race you want to do. So let's get them lit back up right now. And you see when they show the shot where they come under just across start-finish line, you really get an idea of the type of power that these things have. Robert Clark is leading this thing as they come down halfway down the backstretch here as we coming up on completing lap number 2.
You're right, and a lot of very famous race car drivers, including the Bushes, have came out of this type of car. So it's been a big stepping stone. You can go back to like Charlotte. They have a track designed specifically for that, and these cars will teach you to drive.
There you see the 12 car of Mac Roberts as he is spun. That'll bring out our second caution. These like we were talking about, there's some really tricky track conditions that these guys are having to deal with, and the first part of these type of races, you'll see a fair amount, but they'll get the hang of it, and they'll get a lot of green flag laps as the race goes
You're
on.
right, and there's some lights on the racetrack. That's what allows those drivers to slow down and not run into each other. They see that caution flag. There's a green, there's a yellow, and a red, which, just like your stoplight on the way to the grocery store. But that's what allows these people to not run into each other, because if you're watching, one of the things you have to do is not only watch where you're going, what your race car's doing, the gauges of the race car, what the flagman's pointing and trying to tell you, as well as the lights around the racetrack.
Yeah, it's a lot of sensory overload behind the wheel. I've had an opportunity to drive a couple different ones, and they always tell you, if you spin, make sure the motor does not spin backwards, because, boy, you will just take it right out. But these guys are all pretty good, and let's see, Robert Clark is going to be leading them across and get us back underway here. And, boy, look at that. I think that was Chad. That was the number 2 of Chad Bennett and the 11C of Chad Sinner, last year's champion. And, boy, what a nice move by Sinner on the inside, coming off at turn number 2 to go side by side with Robert Clark, as they are both door to door.
The first 10 cars, 2 by 2, 5 rows all the way back.
Look at that.
Pretty soon they're going to be 3 wide here in a minute.
Chad Sinner proving why he was last year's champion here with the Evergreen Legends, as he really makes a nice run off at turn number 2. These guys, they will really experiment a lot with where they're at on the racetrack. They'll try a couple laps in one spot, then they'll move it up a little bit, or maybe they'll move it down, try and rotate off the corner a little bit better, because these cars really respond to those type of different track elevations and the shapes of the track. They're so cool. There's so much to them. But look at that wad coming in between 3 and 4.
Right now it's Chad Sinner in the first, followed by Mike Gardner. Then it's Robert Clark. Tanner Bennett still in 4th spot, trying to work his way forward at this particular time. As you mentioned, Bennett, part of the Ron Bennett family out of Ellensburg that raced so many years at Yakima Speedway. They've done a little bit of every kind of racing in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it's so good to have them here at Evergreen Speedway and making that long tow over each and every chance that they get. But, boy, it is, look at that, the 72 of Mike Gardner, nice lead, and the way he came out, and it was, I probably should talk about this afterwards, but I went down and talked to him after this race. And he goes, man, about lap 15, I was ready for this to be done. He goes,
it's tough work. We have a spin.
Oh, look at this. Boy.
Chad Sinner started that whole thing off, and along with it was Brian Carlson in the 25 cars. You can see on the top side of turn 2 of the 3/8 here at Evergreen Speedway.
All right, back underway as we have kept this thing green here. We have 30 laps make up our main event for our Evergreen Legends. Mike Gardner in that 72 car, Chad Sinner right behind him. In the 3rd place is Tanner Bennett. And Tanner Bennett in that 2 car. And I think at this point in the race, where we're not obviously at the halfway point, but these guys are kind of taking a look at and maybe not getting so much in a hurry to make that pass. They want to see what those guys are doing and what their tendencies are.
You're right. And if you watch those cars come down that front straightaway, there's that big white line right there. And you see some of them diving down below that. They can do that. There's some great asphalt down there. The only problem is you want to get in there too low, then it's hard to make that car turn left and get off the corner. So it's a compromise.
All right, we've got another caution, the number 98 car, Aaron Flett. You can see him up there. And with that, we'll bring it back to Tom Glitherow and myself. I'm Steve Mortland. Again, so glad to be here with you on Home Track Heroes at Evergreen Speedway. Currently not up to the halfway point of our Evergreen Legends, but we'll take a second and get these guys. Brian Carlson, I wanted to talk about him for just a second. Another longtime family out here at Evergreen Speedway. His dad, John, has run figure 8s forever. In fact, Brian even tried out figure 8 for a while. Then they decided to get into the Legends, and I think that has been a good move for him.
Well, you're right. And that leader of Mike Gardner, sorry about that, he was a last-minute replacement for Keith Van Dyne. Keith brought the car up. Keith has been involved in this series for a number of years. Keith was scheduled to drive it. Mike didn't have a ride. And Keith was kind enough to slide out of the seat and put Mike in. Luckily, he could fit in that because those cars don't have a lot of room.
Yeah, and we talk often when the Hornets are running, and his son Chase Gardner runs in the Interstate Battery Hornet division out here. Okay, green flag back out underway. And, boy, one guy we were talking about, the 72 of Mike Gardner, probably pretty happy to see those cautions so he can just kind of relax just a little bit and catch his breath. But, boy, once the green flag is out, he is all business.
Well, inside that race car, it's going to get up probably close to 100 degrees and there's no air conditioning, and even the wind going by at this particular point in time, not real cool. The thing is, you can be in great shape, but there's still a thing called racing shape, and
Right.
you use different muscles. You can run, you can jog, you can ride a bicycle. There's nothing that prepares you for racing like racing.
Our top three are kind of breaking away a little bit from the rest of the pack. As you see, it is Mike Gardner in the 72, Chad Sinner in the 11, and Tanner Bennett in the 2 car. Back on the track is the 22 of Bo Stevenson, the 2M of Jeff Mueller, Robert Clark in the 36. As you see, a nice shot there of the second and third place cars with Bennett all over the back end, and a nice move down as he dove down just before going into turn number 3. But all of that is kind of allowing Mike Gardner maybe stretch his lead out a bit, so he'll take all of that he can get.
That 5th car back, that's Jeff Mueller in the 2M. You can see that car wants to have a little bit of a push to it, and he's having a hard time keeping that thing right down on that white line. And at Evergreen Speedway and a lot of short tracks, that white line is your friend, your fastest way around.
It sure is. But boy, Mike Gardner really took a wide turn off of turn number 4 that time. Dives it down in turn number 1. Sinner and Bennett there. Bennett taking a look down on the inside. Let's see if he can make that thing stick as he is working the bottom, and they are side by side. He got just a little bit better entry into turn number 3, and we will have a new second place as they come across halfway through our 30-lap main event for the Evergreen Legends.
At this point, it's Mike Gardner, followed by Tanner Bennett, Chad Sinner, Jeff Mueller, and Bo Stevenson rounding out that top 5.
Then we go back to Robert Clark and Scott Main, Brian Carlson, Don Rogers, and Cameron Main make up the top 10 as we are working the downhill half of our main event for the Evergreen Legends here on the 3/8 course. And again, an absolutely flawless day out here, which has kind of been as we see the 2 and the 11 of Sinner spin around, and Sinner will get it back up underway. We also see the number 2, and I believe that's the 2M of Jeff Mueller right there.
And those guys were coming around fairly close. I'm sure that Jeff might have to maybe change some shorts at this time.
One of the unknown hazards of racing here. Well, again, home track heroes here on CW11. And I got to take a minute and shout out. Great job last week by Kyler and Ben as they covered Evergreen Drift, both the grassroots and the Pro-Am series. That was kind of that drone shot they had was just outstanding. So good job.
If there's any kind of racing you like, you can probably find it here at Evergreen Speedway.
You will. All right, we see the Speedway Chevrolet pace car. And again, thank you to Speedway Chevrolet for bringing all of this to you here on CW11.
You bet. It's Mike Gardner followed by Tanner Bennett in that 2B car. And you know that at this point in time, he's starting to think about he's running out of laps. And he's going, what do I need to do if I'm going to go ahead and win this thing? So the driver right now is running through his scenarios. Can't think too hard because you got to react instead of being pre-planned.
That's right. Mike Gardner takes a big gulp of air and mashes the gas. And we are back underway working the lap 17 out of 30 for the Evergreen Legends. And I got to tell you, and I've talked to a fair amount of drivers that just absolutely love this size of track for those style of cars because, they're a 5/8 scale car. Like we talked about, motorcycle engines, a crazy horsepower to weight ratio. As you see a great shot of Chad Sinner there, trying to work his way back up through the field from that earlier spin. But it does a nice job as we see the 10 car has gone around, and that is Chris Thompson, and he's still got that thing going. We'll see if he gets his way back into the field. But kind of getting back to that thought, on the 3/8 track gives a lot of room for these guys to move around. We talked about it earlier, how they search for that sweet spot to find, and a track this wide and this amount of time gives them the opportunity.
And right now, those
that.
drivers are trying to figure out where that sweet spot is. They got a chance to really think about what they're doing. The other thing that happens under the yellow, they now realize how warm it is. When you're out there racing, it's fine. You don't feel anything. You're concentrating, working so hard. The yellow comes out, and all of a sudden you're going, holy smokes, I'm hot. And you're starting to smell the motor, maybe the rear end of the car, all those things.
Yep.
We're getting kind of late in this event, and then all of a sudden the leaders, are going, okay, what's that noise I hear? Hope this thing holds together for another 13 laps, and Mike Gardner may pick up a win.
Before we get back underway, I want to take a minute and thank Central Welding Supply as They're a champion for motorsports in the Pacific Northwest. Go to Central Welding for gases, safety product, and welding supplies. Visit centralwelding.com to find one of their 25 locations near you. And you'll see their sign up on the backstretch billboards on the 5/8 and Central Welding. Just a phenomenal partner out here at Evergreen Speedway. Back underway, like Tom mentioned, with Mike Gardner in the 72, hanging on as like we had talked about before. First time in 10 years that Mike has been behind the wheel. Chad Sinner and a battle of the 11s here.
We got bumpers hooked up there for just a quick second.
Yeah.
The two 11 cars were so happy with each other that they decided they'd play like a train and one push, one pull.
And there's Ernie Estrin as he has brought out another caution on the spin. Ernie Estrin, another great story, too. His son Brian was the championship car owner for several years with Mike Holden behind the wheel in the Speedway Chevrolet Super Late models back in the day. And, he just kind of thought, I want to put my dad in the car and see how he does. So they got a really sweet deal on the sledge, and it's really well prepared, and they're just having fun.
Maybe Dad told him that his late model wasn't fast enough, and I'll show you how to do it. So.
Yeah, or Dad said, hey, let me have a couple in the sledge and then put me back in the Mustang. It can go from there. So we're got 18 complete. This is lap number 19 out of 30 for our Evergreen Legend main event. Pace car will pull off, and it is still going to be Mike Gardner in the 72. Tanner Bennett starting to plot his plan to kind of get around the 72. We'll see if he can do it here coming up pretty quick. But back underway, and Mike Gardner will throw it down into one.
You bet. Gardner trying to hold that thing down, pushed up just a little bit right there. Tanner Bennett not quite in position to take a shot for that lead, but then they've kind of pulled away a little bit from Stevenson, Clark, Carlson, all running back their nose to tail behind them. But it looks like it may be a two-legend race between Mike Gardner and Tanner Bennett.
I'm really impressed with Robert Clark, and who's currently in the third spot right now. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more out of that cat before this whole season is done. But like Tom mentioned, a two-car breakaway, and what a move on the inside by Tanner Bennett. And we have a new leader with 10 laps to go. The two-car of Tanner Bennett is working the bottom tough.
As you said, as we talked about, Mike Gardner had a little bit of pushed up, walked that car up the racetrack a little bit, opened that door. Bennett drove it in there, and we'll just have to wait and see. Will he now drive away? It's quite possible he was just sitting on Mike Gardner, not wanting to stress his equipment any more than necessary. Does he now pull away as this race goes on? Well,
he certainly seems to be doing it as they come out of turn number 2 here on lap number 22. And it's going to be interesting to see now that Tanner has got the lead. He doesn't have to worry about getting around Gardner. How his approach to this racetrack is going to change. And I have a feeling if we keep a camera on him, he will hit the same spot every time from here on out.
Well, that family at Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, whatever, they talk about racing, how to take good care of your equipment, when to make your move, all of those things that are necessary, especially when you have a nice young man like Tanner Bennett, not that old, not lots of racing experience yet. He's heard it. He's thinking about it, especially Grandpa.
Yeah.
He's giving him some pretty good advice.
What's Grandpa going to say when I bring it back? and judging by the performance he's putting on, I think Grandpa's going to be pretty happy. It is Tanner Bennett with 5 to go in the lead here as the laps winding down for our Evergreen Legends. So cool to have the Legends being a regular part of Saturday action here on Home Track Heroes and Evergreen Speedway. It's just a nice Sunday or Saturday afternoon drive for the driver of the number 2B car, Tanner Bennett. You see Chad Sinner there, our previous champion from last year, as he is trying to cut his way back up through the field. Still really impressed with the run by Robert Clark, currently in the 3rd spot. Jeff Mueller in that 4th spot, as the two number 11s are side by side now as they come out of turn number 4. Nice shot of that 28 machine too.
Yeah, with just about 3 more laps to go, Bennett at this point is going, give me that white flag. I want to see that white flag.
Yeah.
There's a big scoreboard, and you can see the laps. I'm not sure he has enough time to look over and actually process what lap it is. But as a race car driver, you start figuring out, approximately where you are in the event. And I know Bennett's going, give me that white flag. Let's get this baby in the books.
Yeah, and Mike Gardner probably is as well, just so he can take a breath and relax a little bit. A nice grouping of cars. You see Estrin there in the 32. But it is all Tanner Bennett here with, should see the white flag coming around next time.
You're right. And Bennett running some of the fastest laps of the entire event. Right now, running 18-second laps, just to give you a little idea, covering 3/8 of a mile in just a little over 18 seconds.
Pretty impressive.
It's pretty busy.
White flag out. One more to go for the driver of the number 2. As we see a car parked down, just had gotten off course, but got out of the groove. And here, let's take them out of turn number 3 right now, and that is going to be your coming up to take the checkered flag, Tanner Bennett, your heat race number 1 winner and your main event winner here on this gorgeous Saturday afternoon. Second place will go to Mike Gardner in the 72. Robert Clark will hang on for the 3rd spot. Jeff Mueller in the 4th. Brian Carlson in the 5th spot will bring the top 3 up. As you see, Bennett taking, it's going to take a bit of a victory lap here. We'll bring him up, and they're going to be talking with our friend Kyler Hope.
Down here with Tanner Bennett coming home victorious in Angel of the Wind's victory lane. A very, very competitive field of legends out here today.
Yeah, there's a lot of good guys here. We got a good car. My guys been working their butts off out here in the heat. Came out here quick out of the box and got her done today, so feels great.
How difficult is it to drive these type of cars on such a hot, slick track?
Oh, you know, the hotter it is, the slicker it is, so that's all I can really say. It just gets slick as the heat goes up, the track gets more slick. So today is pretty slick, so I feel great to be here. My car was on rails all day long. So
who do you need to shout out for your victory tonight?
I want to thank all my family for sure, TNT Electric and Ellensburg Napa.
Tanner Bennett coming home victorious tonight. Down here with Mike Gardner, a very hot race today, and you're out of breath after coming on P2 tonight.
Yeah, it was. I want to thank Keith Van Dyne for letting me use his car. It's his car, and he gave me a chance to get into it, and I just really appreciate the heck out of it. And thanks to my wife and my son, and oh, what a great day. What a great day.
These cars are very zippy and very fast, and it's a very competitive field. How were you able to come home P2 tonight?
I don't know. Grace of God, I guess. I've been out of it for a while, and then hopped in it, and it was pretty close, I thought. And I'm like, well, let's just go with it. And Jacob helped me a lot. And yeah, it was just one of those fairy tale nights. It was fun, just fun.
A very big smile underneath that face mask for sure. Robert Clark coming home 3rd tonight. How were you able to get through that very, very competitive field of legends?
It was tough tonight. It was a good field. I was having problems, but luckily my car came around.
Who do you need to thank for putting all the work in on the car to come home 3rd?
Well, I got to thank Lucky's Drive-In, Econo Signs, and Devo Motorsports.
Robert Clark comes home 3rd tonight.